Teach you a principle that, and a principle is like a law that's working all the time, operating all the time, like the law of gravity. It's operating all the time, whether you believe it in or not. It's operating all the time. There's different laws. This is a principle that is impacting all of your lives right now. If you're a Christian, it's impacting your life. If you're not a Christian, it's impacting your life. If you're asleep and not listening, it's impacting your life. If you're ready to take notes, it's impacting your life. No matter how old you are, this is something that's going on right now. It's like if you have a computer, this is like in the operating system of your life. You can't see it, but it is influencing you right now. I call it the path principle, and I want to explain the principle, and then we're going to look at some verses together as we talk about the rhythm of the journey, because the rhythm of the journey is the rhythm of the journey of your life, where you're going to end up. Now, all of you will end up somewhere in this life. Some of you will end up there on purpose. Some of you will end up in some places by accident. Some of you will end up in some places and you'll say, you know what, this is exactly where I wanted to end up. This is where I wanted to be relationally. This is where I wanted to be financially. This is where I wanted to be spiritually. This is where I wanted to be academically. I arrived exactly where I wanted to be, but very few people in life ever get to where they want to go, and it's because of the principle I'm about to share with you, the principle of the path. And the principle of the path goes like this: direction, not intention, determines destination. Let me say it again, then I want you to say it with me. Direction, not intention, determines destination. Would you say that with me? Direction, not intention, determines destination. One more time with passion. Direction, not intention. Now let me explain what that means. In Atlanta, there's a highway called I-85. Many of you have been on I-85. Some of you got on I-85 to get here, right? If you lived where I live, if you lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and you decided that you were going to go to Florida, thank you. If you just lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and you decided you were going to go to Florida for vacation, and you got all your shorts and your sunscreen and your tank tops and your map, you got everything ready to go to Florida for vacation. You told your friends and your family that you're going to Florida for vacation. Then you packed up the car, got in the car with your family, prayed that God would give you traveling mercies as you went to Florida, and then you got on I-85 and went north. You would never get to this state. You would never get to Florida. And when you arrived in North Carolina and met some of the fine people there, and you got out of your car at Stuckey's and you said, we're so upset. We've been planning for months and months and months to go to Florida, and we're in North Carolina. We've got our shorts and our sunscreen and our map and our postcards and our towels, and we even asked God to give us mercy and to help us have a safe trip, and we're in North Carolina. We're so confused. And the nice, brilliant people in North Carolina would say, well, the problem is that you went the wrong way. And no matter where you intended to be, you went on a road that took you somewhere else. And it is the path you choose, not your intentions, that determine where you end up in life. And then, when you're driving, now here's why this is important. When it comes to driving a car or hiking through the woods, everybody knows this is true. That the direction you take determines your destination. Everybody knows that. Direction, not intention, determines destination. But when it comes to life, there's this huge disconnect. And so, I'll talk to a young lady, she'll say, yeah, here's what I imagine I want in the future. Here's what I intend. I intend to meet a really neat Christian guy and have a really neat Christian relationship, and we'll even pray together, and we'll go to church together, and we'll have the same standards. This is the kind of relationship I intend to have. But the path she chooses is, if he's cute and he asks me out, I'm going. Now that's a path. And so she gets on the path that if he's cute and asks me out, I'm going. If he's cute and asks me out, I'm going. She's on that path. And then years later, she ends up in all these bad relationships. And she says, I don't know how I ended up here. I go, I do. You chose a path, and the path has a destination. And the path you choose, the direction you choose, determines your destination, not your intention. All of you have probably had this idea. You think, you know what, most of you, I want to really do good in school because I want to graduate with pretty good GPA so I can get into good college. That's your intention. And some of you have chosen a path that will lead you in that direction. Some of you intend to have good grades and intend to graduate on time and intend to go on to college, but you're on a path that's taking you somewhere else. And then you hit 18 or you get to your senior year and you're not doing so well and nobody wants you in their college and you haven't saved enough money and you're so discouraged and you think, how did I end up here? It's real simple. You chose a path that led there because this is a principle that's impacting everybody in the room. The direction you take determines your destination. Direction, not intention, determines destination. Now let me tell you about your parents for just a moment, okay? Many of your parents wish they could go back and be 20 again because they would choose some different paths. In fact, they've told you this. In fact, they say, don't do as I do as I say, because when I was your age, I made some decisions, and now they're at some destinations financially, or maybe some destinations in their marriage, or destinations in, their academic world that they regret, and the reason they're where they are is because they chose a path that led there. It's real simple. And they intended one thing, and they dreamed something, and they wished and they hoped for, but they took a path that led somewhere else. And this is why sometimes they overreact. This is sometimes why they just get in your face, because they desperately want you to take a path that leads somewhere good. And they know this. It's not what you dream about that makes the difference. It's not what you hope for. It's not even what you pray for. It is the path you choose. And this is a principle that God has determined, that direction, not intention, determines destination. I've met so many people who have all these hopes and dreams about their money. One day I'm going to be financially free, one day I'm going to have a lot of money, and one day and I hope, and these are my intentions. And you look at the path they're on, and they're spending it all, and they're in debt, and they're making all these terrible decisions, but they hope someday I'm going to end up here when their path is leading them there. And the path, please listen, the path always wins. The path always wins. The direction always determines your destination 100% of the time. Now, some of you have already seen this happen. Some of you have lived long enough to where you can already look back on that 10th grade year and go, whoo, I thought, but it didn't go that way. So what I want to do for our last few minutes in this session and our last few minutes together is I want to explain to you, and this is so amazing. I want to explain to you why it is that people choose the wrong path. And here's why this is so important. Because you have your life ahead of you, and if you can, and I know I say this at every session, but I believe it at every session with every one of these principles. Again, this is one of those things that if you can somehow integrate this into your thinking, put it on a card, put it on your mirror, remind yourself, let your youth group talk about it. If somehow you can keep this in front of you, this will enable you as a teenager to get on some paths that will actually take you where you want to be. Because if I could ask every one of you, give me 3 sentences about where you want to end up financially. You could kind of paint me a picture. Give me 3 sentences about where you want to one day end up relationally. Well, I want a smoking hot wife whose dad's really rich and she's a Christian. Everybody kind of has a mental picture. I mean, all of you do. It's okay. All of you kind of have a mental picture of where you want to be. We all do. That's great. The question is, listen to me, listen. Do you know how to pick a path that will get you there? Or are you just going to talk about it and hope for it and intend for it and then just pick the random path that your friends take, and then when you're 25 or 35, wake up and go, dang it, I'm not anywhere close to where I thought I'd be. I wonder what happened. I can tell you what will happen. The path you choose determines your destination. Direction, not intention, determines your destination. Now here is why people choose the wrong path. And if you can get this, I'm telling you, will save you a world of hurt down the road. Here's what happens. There are things that come along in life that capture or grab our attention. Isn't that true? For all of us, there are things that come along in life that capture. In fact, that's an interesting word. It captured my attention. It grabbed my attention. I'll give you an illustration. When I was about 29 years old, I was doing great, loving life, had a cool car, lived in a cool condo, had a good job, everything's good for me, just kind of going down the road of life, zippity-doo-dah, things are great. And then I met this girl named Sandra Walker, and she captured my attention. Woo! And we went out on a date and another date and another date, and soon all I could think about was Sandra Walker. And I started spending stupid money and doing crazy things and staying up late and driving crazy distances and daydreaming about Sandra Walker. She captured my attention. And get this, then we got married. Now let me ask you this. Do you think marrying her shifted the direction of my life? Oh yeah. And now there are 3 people in the world that wouldn't even be in the world if I hadn't married Sandra Walker. I'm telling you, when she captured my attention, look up here, my life went, And boy, it's a good thing. It is. I was going to show you pictures, but you'd just be distracted the rest of the time. I didn't want to do that to you. It's not fair, okay? I'm so in love with my wife. I am so in love with my wife. Now, we've been married almost 20 years, and people say, well, you know, after the first few years, all that romance goes away. It's just a commitment. No, I can promise you that it can last 20 years because we're there. I don't know about after that, but so far, so good. So here's my point. Listen, let's look up here. Look up here. Look. There will be things that come along in life that capture or grab your attention. Some of them are great. Some of them are terrible. Let me ask you a question. How many of you can think of a time when everything's cool, everything's fine, and you met this guy, you met this girl, and she captured your attention, and he's all you could think about, and you wrote stupid notes, wrote stupid money, spent so much time on the phone, snuck out at night, texted till 3 a.m. How many of you could say at least once in my life, somebody came along and, they flat grabbed my attention? Let me see those hands. Isn't it great? Now put them down. Let me ask you this. Listen. I just want you to understand this with me. Let's look up here. Isn't it true? Look. Isn't it true that when that happened, that when that happened, your life veered off in a little bit different direction? All of a sudden, you moved in a different direction. You spent more time on some things, less time on others. More time on the phone, less time studying. More time talking to him, less time talking to them. More time thinking about her, less time thinking. Isn't it true? When something grabs or captures your attention, good or bad, isn't it true? It steers your life in a different direction, and direction determines destination. Okay? Now, just as there are things that capture, or let me ask you this first. How many of you would say, we're all been honest all week, how many of you would say, you know what? There was a time in my life somebody grabbed and captured my attention. Woo, it was incredible. And looking back, I wish I had never paid any attention to that jerk. Yeah, check that out. Isn't it true? Look up here. Come on. You saw him. You go down the road of life, everything's cool. You saw him and went, woo, I probably shouldn't look over there again. I really shouldn't look over there again. I really should not pay any attention to that. Right? And then what happened? Your whole life went, and your parents said, you don't need to be hanging around with boys like that. And you're like, I'm not hanging out yet. I'm just looking, right? And your daddy said, son, she ain't no good. She ain't no good. She ain't no good. And he said, you might be right, Dad. I'm going to prove it. 3 months later, Dad, you were right. She was no good. This is what I just want you to understand this. This is impacting your life right now. Whatever grabs or captures your attention steers your life in a direction for good or for bad. Now, there's another side of this. Just as there are things that grab or capture our attention, there are things that we give or pay attention to, right? There are things that we give or pay attention to. The reason you're at this camp is because you decided, you know what? I'm going to pay a little bit of attention to the development of my faith or my spiritual life. That's not why all of you here. But some of you look forward to camp every single summer because you know what? This is a way to give some of my attention to what God wants from my life. So you're giving your attention to something good. Many of you have disciplined yourself to give attention to or pay attention to your academic studies. It's not something that captures your attention. You just get up early and stay up late and you give attention to it. And the fact that you're giving and paying attention to your homework is, you know what that's doing? That is directing your life, and it's going in a direction because you're paying or giving attention to it. Some of you are giving or paying attention to some incredible things, and it is sheer discipline. Those of you who are athletic, working out doesn't always capture or grab your attention, but you get yourself up in the morning, you give yourself attention to working out, you give your attention to exercise, you give your attention to that discipline. And isn't it true that it is directing your life to some extent? Here's what I'm saying. Listen. Everything that has captured or grabbed your attention, everything that you're paying or giving attention to is directing your life, and direction determines destination. This is the path or this is the way of the journey. This is how the journey of your whole life is going to be. From this point forward and all for as long as you're alive, the things that capture your attention, the things you give attention to, influence the direction, and direction impacts destination.